Hey brother, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about infidelity. Specifically, when I'm talking with a man, sometimes in the beginning of the conversation and sometimes during the middle of our coaching, he will discover that his wife is having an affair. Now, sometimes these are emotional affairs, sometimes these are physical affairs, but really at the end of the day, the way to handle them and how we feel about them is pretty much the same, especially as men. We treat any kind of betrayal like that as something that is a personal attack to us. So I've got some notes here. You're going to see me look off camera at some of the notes that I've written because I want this video to be concise and I want it to be actionable. So I made some notes ahead of time in order to make sure that you get some good value out of this video. So go ahead and like this video and help other guys discover it so that they can get the same good quality information as well. So here, the one thing we have to recognize is that this feels, of course, it feels terrible. It feels like it's a personal attack. In fact, it feels, like I said before, like a huge betrayal. And a lot of times we can have shame about it. We can be very angry about it. And we can feel like something is being done to us, right? Like this other person is basically kind of attacking us. And that's because our brain is a meaning-making machine. It actually tries to make sense of all this. And sometimes it comes up with answers that just don't serve us. Because at the end of the day, that other person really isn't doing anything to us. They're actually trying to do something for themselves. It just so happens that we happen to be on the other end of that. So the question really becomes, once you've learned of it, once you've discovered it, whether they've disclosed it or whether you've found it by looking at her phone or by just sort of intuition as to what is going on. Once you've confirmed what's going on, you have to remember to breathe. And I know this is going to sound incredibly basic, but when we breathe, we take a deep breath, what happens is we send a signal to our brain that we're okay, that something is not chasing us, that something's not going to eat us, because we get into this reactive fight or flight state where we are just reactive. I used that word just a second ago because that's where we are. We're unconscious, we're unaware, we just go into this automatic mode. Whatever is happening feels so intense and so negative that we just want it to go away. And so we just jump into this automatic unconscious mode of behavior. And that can cause us to feel even more unsafe, and it can drive our anxieties, magnify our shame, magnify our anger. And really when we come from that place, when we act from that place, or even have thoughts from that place, it's very corrosive, and it drains us of all of our creative energy to figure out for ourselves how to care for ourselves and what comes next. So we want to breathe and we want to slow way down. We want to recognize that the phrase breakneck speed includes the word breakneck, because when we do things at breakneck speed, a lot of times there's a lot of collateral damage, a lot of mistakes, a lot of unnecessary suffering, pain that we just don't need to add to the mix. So we want to slow way down. We want to slow our thoughts down. We want to slow our physicality down. We want to come back into the room and be there so that we can make conscious, deliberate decisions, so that instead of being reactive, we can be responsive. We can choose our response. And then the next thing that we want to do is remember that you're okay. Now, this one is going to be the hardest because right now you don't feel okay. You feel like your world is ending. You feel like everything is crashing down. But you have to remind yourself that you're okay, that this moment is not going to last. It's going to be impermanent, that you're going to move beyond it, and that other things are going to be on the other side. And so we have to remind ourselves that we're not powerless, that we're not dependent, that we're not a victim, and And it's important to take that mind frame because we want to be able to remind ourselves that we have choices. And one of those choices is to clarify our what's called our nuts, our non-negotiable, unalterable terms, which, if you want to summarize it, is I won't live this way. So we get really clear about what our values are around this thing. Is this a deal breaker? Is this something to come back from? Is this something that you want to understand more about? It doesn't mean that in that moment you have to make any decisions. It just means you need to decide what this it means to you according to your values. The other thing that we want to do is set boundaries. This is essential, especially when we've first discovered of the affair. It's basically right on the heels of I won't live this way, is to say this needs to stop, right? This cannot continue. In order for us to be together, this cannot continue. And then what you're doing is, when you're setting boundaries, you're not telling the other person so much what to do, so much as you're telling them, when this line is crossed, this is how I will handle myself. This is what my response will be. So that might be moving out, that might be filing for divorce, that might be ending the relationship. So that is where you get to be in control of yourself. You're not powerless, you're not dependent, you're not a victim, right? You have ownership, agency, self-reliance. You can make choices for yourself. The reason that this is important is because we need to care for ourselves. When you care for yourself, you increase your self-respect, you increase your self-trust, and that ultimately increases your self-esteem. And that's important because when we live according to our values, then we strengthen ourselves, right? We strengthen our sense of self. We strengthen a knowing of who we are and how we will live and how we won't live. And that helps us to be able to handle these moments, right? It puts us into our resiliency, our self-reliance. So we're either going to strengthen ourselves or we're going to erode ourselves. So if we live in opposition to our values, compromise is another word, compromise our values, then we're going to erode our self-confidence, our self-trust, our self-respect, and that's not going to be good for our self-esteem. And it's going to make it hard for us to make decisions where we can care for ourselves. And you have the right and a responsibility to care for yourself. Don't outsource that to anybody else. That is yours to be responsible for yourself. Then recognize that by doing this, what we're either doing is we're either supporting ourselves or we're disowning ourselves, and we ultimately want to support ourselves. And the way that we can support ourselves, this is an invitation, is to join a community of men. I want to invite you into Mentoring Men. If you haven't been to mentoring.men, there's a link in the description. You can click that. You can find out more details and you can join that community. It's a community of supportive men who will listen deeply, like maybe no one has ever listened to you before. They will challenge some of your assumptions. They will help you to challenge your views and maybe get some new insights and perspective. And they will ultimately help you grow through this moment because, again, you do have choices. You can grow through this and become more clear about who you are, how you want to live, and how you want to move forward. Remember, you're going to go through the 5 stages of grief. There's going to be a period of healing, and then you're going to need to know what's next for you. So click that link in the description below. Go check out the community. Join a community of supportive men. And then if you have any questions at all, reach out to me, message me, and let's have a conversation. All right, brother, take care, and I'll talk to you next time.